Welcome everybody to our second live stream of Flutter Netherlands. I'm your host of today, Peter Otten, and we are doing this live again on YouTube. Unfortunately, because of Corona, of course, we cannot do this in person, but therefore we have some international audience today, I saw. So make sure you grab a drink. The last time we had a stream, we talked about Flutter state management, and today we will be talking about Flutter testing. So what is Flutter Netherlands? It's a great place to meet other Flutter enthusiasts, make some Flutter friends, share some knowledge, and learn some new skills. And today, these testing dummies are also our friends. Well, how can you do all of this? You can visit our new website, which is built in Flutter. Just go to flutternl.org and join our Slack community, join our meetup page, our Twitter, YouTube, GitHub, LinkedIn, you name it, everything is there. But first up, for today, we have some announcements. First one is that we would like to welcome our new organizer, René Floor. So together with Peter, that's me, and Johan, we now have 3 organizers. Johan and me noticed that we were slacking a bit off and we needed some help. And René was really pushing in the community, when is the next meetup, when are you going to do this stuff? So that's why we asked him. Also, our previous stream was located at Baseflow, where René is working as a Flutter developer advocate. And Baseflow is the builder of some awesome Flutter plugins like Cache Network Image, Geolocator, and also Permission Handler. René will also do a presentation today. So before he starts that, he will do some extra introduction of himself. The next thing we would like to announce is that Flutter Engage is coming up. It has been announced a few months ago, at least the date, 3rd of March. But yesterday evening, they announced the name, Flutter Engage. So make sure that you subscribe at the link which is noted here. I will also put it in the comments later. And then let's see what Flutter will be announcing on the 3rd of March. If you do have an idea what will be announced, put it in the comments, and then we're curious. The day after that, on the 4th of March, we will host another Google Meet. So not the YouTube stream we're doing right now, but just a casual conversation on Google Meet. Here we will talk about the stuff that has been announced at Flutter Engage, but we'll also have a special guest and do an interview with him. We're not sure who this is yet. We still are waiting confirmation. So let's see, I would say. We also have some Flutter flashlights, and we will end the Google Meet with a giveaway. So what is Flutter Flashlight? Well, it's basically your time to shine. In a few minutes here, you can demonstrate what you built in Flutter, or why you like Flutter, maybe a plugin you wrote, or something else you did. Everything Flutter related is welcome. It's your time to shine in a few minutes. And how can you basically sign up for this? Well, just email us at flutternl@gmail.com or join our Slack group and send a message. And the link to Slack is on our webpage. So today we are doing the live stream. In March we will do the Google Meet, and in April we will do another live stream. The topic has yet to be determined. So if you have any good ideas, or even better, if you are willing to share your knowledge on Flutter, please hit us up at our Gmail address or at our Slack group, and then we will get back to you. Just if you have a good idea for a topic, or if you have a good idea for speaking for yourself, just let us know. Then our program for today. So today is about testing. First up, René Floor will tell us something about making your apps testable with Riverpod. And then Johan will continue with that code and add some snapshot tests for Golden. And after these talks, we will have an after party. So in preparation of this meetup, we did some polls on our Twitter account. So if you're not following yet, make sure to do so. And first, we're going to share the results of these polls. So the first poll we had was, I use the following test strategies in my Flutter app. A, only test units, B, unit and widget tests, C, unit, widget and integration tests, and D, no tests because there's no time or priority. What we see here is that about 50% of the people, a bit less, have unit and widget tests, and the quarter of the people have unit, widget, and integration tests. So that's good news. Then the next poll we had is to see what your test coverage goal is. And what we see here is that most of the people have their goal maybe mentally, but maybe also written somewhere in the definition of done, between 60 and 80%. But then the question, of course, becomes, what is your actual test coverage? And here we see that most people voted for 0%, which is quite a drop-off between the previous question. So apparently testing is important, but we don't have the time or the knowledge or the priority to do so. And let's hope, if the knowledge is the problem, that we will learn something today. And so the last poll was actually to check if you answered the same question between what is your testing coverage goal and what is your actual coverage. And here we see some drop off in the number of votes, which might also explain that the result is a bit 50-50, which I don't really believe. I think some people who had to vote no here just didn't vote. But let's hope that after today, people will have more information about testing and will do this better. So then let's head over to our first speaker of this evening, which is René Fleur, about making your apps testable with Riverpod.
Much for introducing me, Peter. Also, thank you very much for having me as presenter and asking me to join the organization team. I'm really happy to help the Dutch community because it's way too small in my opinion and should grow a bit this year. As Peter already introduced me, I'll be quick. I already play with Flutter since 2017. It was still in alpha stage at that time, but I already really liked it. Although it was not production ready yet, it was already fun to play with or to use with hackathons. And that was also the reason that I made Cache Network Image in 2017, because there just wasn't anything for that functionality. And since then, Flutter has become so big. I wouldn't have expected that in 2017 because it was hardly known, and everybody said, "Yeah, it looks nice, but it's never going to work because it's just another cross-platform framework." And here we are, getting the biggest one, I guess. Last year I joined Baseflow, and since that time I also use Flutter in commercial projects. So at the moment I work with Flutter, but I do also .NET backends, and at Baseflow everybody gets a piece of their time at work to work at open source projects or anything you like. So that's also why Baseflow has so many plugins or packages. For example, geolocator and permission handler are also very well known. So I'm really proud to be a part of Baseflow, and it's really fun working there. But today is not about me. Today is about testing. And the goal is to create this app you see in the animation. So we have a Flutter NL news app. And there is a filter for the type of news you want to get. So the goal is to test this, because the goal is testing, of course, today, and to test the filter. But the filter is not working at the moment, so part of it is to get it working. Let me now show the app as it is. This is the app running as a macOS app within Flutter. So that's also a nice way to develop, in my opinion, because it's just really quick. This is the filter. You can see I can click on it, but it just isn't doing anything. And these are the news items, and they are fetched from an API client. And if you see that I restart the app, you see it takes a bit of about 3 seconds to load, and then it will show the items. The most important widgets for today are the news list widget. It's pretty simple. You have an API client. This one fetches the news, and it either shows an error when it fails loading. When it's still loading, it shows the loading indicator. And when it's finished loading, it shows the news content. So this is one of the widgets we are going to test. And the other one is the filter itself. That's called category selector. You can see here it's a stateless widget. It has filter options. Let's zoom in a bit normally. It has filter for all, for news, for meetup, and for announcements. And it's made out of with a pop-up menu button, and it has children for each of these filter options. So it's not that complicated, but you need to see it once. But it's just a simple pop-up menu. And for this, I'm going to write a test. But first, let's go to some theory about testing. Because everybody learned last year that testing is important. And if you don't test, you are not in control. For example, when somebody makes a pull request and you don't have any code that's tested, then you have no idea if it will break existing functionality or that the functionality that's new even works. So that's the main reason to test, is to make sure that even if your code is working now, it will also work in the future. A Flutter test is just a function written in Dart. Especially widget tests are really easy in my opinion. I've also done UI tests on other frameworks like Xamarin, and I found it always horrible to do. But writing Flutter widgets tests is actually fun. It's just a normal unit test you can do with test, and then run your Dart code, your Dart only code. When you want to test a Flutter widget, you write test widgets, and you get a tester, and the tester is important because that's also what you use to show the widget, to render the widgets, and to test them. There are 4 important functions that I will use. One is pump. Pump means that you say against the testing framework, render the next frame. It's only rendering frames when you tell them to do. So for example, when you push a button and expect a state to change, you have to pump the widget, because otherwise what is rendered is still the same. So it doesn't know that it needs to rebuild the widgets. Pump and settle is a very similar one. But for example, when you have an animation like this, when you press meetups, for example, you see the pop-up menu closing. So that means it's more than one frame. So pump and settle handles all the animations until they are completed. And then you can continue to check the new state. Then you have tester.tap, that's for tapping a button or tapping anything. And last but not least, you have an expect. Expect is really for your check. For example, is this widget showing, or is it text correct, or anything like that, the real test you are doing. Now let's write some tests. I already, yes, that's me. I already added some test data. For example, I have news item that's of type category news. It has a title, you wouldn't believe what happened, and a message, we just made a widget test. And I want to know if this news item is actually rendered. One of the reasons that I make test data is because you don't want to call an API in your test, either because you don't know what the data will be. So that means you can't really test if it's shown correctly if you don't know what to expect. But also widget tests have to be really fast, because in the end, maybe you have thousands of tests. And if you do an API call every time, then running all these tests won't be possible to do often. So that's the reason why you have test data. That's always the same, and yeah, you use that. And I already prepared some to-dos because at first we just want to know, is the news shown on the screen? So for that we have to build our app, trigger the first frame, and then find the news title. For that we take this widget tester, we pump a widget, and then we just run my app.
May I see in the comments that people are asking to zoom in a bit. Could you enlarge the code?
Yeah. Is this better?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks.
You're welcome. And then I expect my news title to be visible. So I type expect, type find, and then I can find a widget on various ways. But in this case, I want to find by text. What was it? By find text, not by text, just text. News title. And then I expect to find one widget. So you type it like you think, because I expect to find one widget. And then I run the test. But obviously it fails. This is something else than I thought of, but you also have, pumping is an asynchronous task. So I have to await that because you have to wait for it to happen. But still the widget will fail because how can I supply my my test data? Because I never indicated that this now should be the test data instead of the real data. So that's also why it says none were found, but one was expected. So also when you get an error, it's written clearly to read in English. Now I can do a couple of things to get my test data into my app. And for that I go back to the slide. And this is like my complete widget tree. This is my app. Somewhere here is the news list, and somewhere here is the filter, for example. So one thing I can do, I can supply all the news items on the top of the tree to my app. So this widget will render the right news items. However, if I do that, I have to keep passing these items all the way down until they reach the list. And if I load new items, it will render all the way down all the widgets in the tree because it gets a new list of news items. So that's not nice to do. Something else I can do, I can supply an API client on the top. And then it also gets, you have to pass it down all the way to here. Still not nice, but at least it isn't rebuilt when the API client fetches new news items because the API client doesn't change. But luckily the Flutter team also thought about this, and they invented the inherited widget quite some time ago. The inherited widget you put somewhere in your widget tree, for example in the top, and the data that's in there can be fetched can be retrieved from any widget in that tree. So A can directly read the data in the inherited widget, and if the data in the inherited widget changes, A rebuilds, but nothing in between. So that's a really nice solution. And it's relatively easy to use. You use it, for example, with textile teams or anything around teaming, and also localization. You often see something .off, and then your context, and then it's often an inherited widget. But making an inherited widget is yeah, it's just not so nice. For example, only to get the color down the widget tree, you have to write all this code. So there are quite some people who made a better solution for that. And the one I'm going to use today is Riverpod. Riverpod is not actually using inherited widget, but made its own variant. But for that, you define a provider which has a certain state, and then instead of a stateless or a stateful widget, you can use a consumer widget, and that consumer widget reads the state from the provider, which you can use in the widget itself. So let's use that to get all the news items, the test news items in the widget tree. For that, I'm going to write a provider. So let's call that all news provider. It is a future provider because the API client gives a future. The news items have to be fetched asynchronously. So then we use a future provider. And for that, we have to make a function. This reference gives you also the option to get other providers that are available within that scope. And this is just returning the news. And then I'm also going to update the news list widget. Let's just call this one all so we can keep see the differences. The nice thing about IntelliJ or any IDE actually is that you can also create your own shortcut. For example, the Flutter team already provides you stateless. If you type stateless, then it creates a stateless widget, or stateful, then it creates a stateful widget. I added consumer for a consumer widget, and I call that now news list. And the rest is quite similar as the old one, but even more compact, because I use this watch, scoped reader watch, to watch the all news provider. And if it gets, then I call when, then it can get data, it can be loading, or it can give an error. The function for data, let's get it on separate lines. The function for data gives you a value, and then I just show news list content of that value, because this gives a list of news items. When it's loading, this needs an empty function, loading indicator. And for an error, you get the error and a stack trace. And you can, for example, you can show an error in the text or anything. This just shows an error icon. Now, when I rebuild, it says no provider scope found. The providers all need a scope. That's like the place where the providers are stored once they are retrieved the first time. So you can put scope all the way on top, but also you can, if you, for example, have an introduction page or something and want different data there, you can also create a separate scope. But that's also something we are going to use for the tests, because then we also need to override some of the providers. And I go to my main. I have my app with Alt Enter. You get you can wrap it with a widget, and then you can wrap it with provider scope. And then I have to application finished. It's not so good news. Guess we will get this is my test. This is weird. Now I still run my test. It should run main. Always with live coding, it can never be completely without a mistake. Of course. Now it's still loading, and the filter is still not working, so there isn't really anything changed. But what I can do now is go to this test. I can also surround this with a provider scope. And then I can override. And then I do all news providers. That's the provider I want to override. And then I want to override it with test news provider. And the test news provider is just returning my test news. Now it's still failing. Why is that? It's still not finding it. That's because I forgot one thing. I need to pump it one extra time, because the test news is still asynchronous, even though it directly returns the news item, it's still asynchronously. So it first loads the state loading, and then I need to pump one more time, and then it should be loaded and should be showing the news. Yes, that's it. Now let's do let's make this filter working by first building the test. Let's just copy this. Let's pump also. Then I should find this news title still. It shouldn't be gone. It's still always good to at least test that. This text news should not be there. That's the news filter title. Okay, you can do find nothing, so I expect to not find the news filter title. What I can also do for the category selector, this widget, I created a key. Normally Flutter always creates a unique key for every widget, but you can also create one yourself. And here you can see the pop-up menu button, I give it a key. You have to make sure they are unique. I do it with this way, and that's the benefit, that now I can also find by key. So I can take that filter widget key to get the filter widget. That's more reliable than looking for the text, because if I want to press all, maybe there is some text all here, or that's it's better to do by key. Now I can tester.tap. I can tap on that filter widget. I have to await it, because that's it takes time. And then I also have to pump, because the pop-up menu has to expand. And then now this title, this should be visible. One. Let's see if it's working so far. Yes, it is. Now we should, what I also did was you can just generically define a key here. What I also did was making a key for every pop-up menu item. But in this case, I did not create a unique key because then you would have a list of keys or something. You can also create a value key. Then Flutter makes a new key for you based on a specific value. And in this case, that value is one of these filter options. So if I want to click on meetups, then I can meetup filter. Then I can find by key, can type value key, and then filter options dot meetup, because that's an enum. I have to import this, and now I can tap on that. I can make sure the filter is closed. Put set on. And then now I should not see the news item anymore. So I expect find.by text, find.text, news title. Let's run. Yeah, it's not. It says again, one was found where none one was expected. That's right, because the filter is still not working. This case we still have similar problem. Let's go back to this slide. Now I'm not wanting to put different data on top, but I want to get the data from the filter, from the widget, to the news list. And for that, also inherited widget is a really good use, or in this case, provider, because otherwise you have to give it all the way up, and then the widget has to give it down again, and that's expensive and ugly code. So that's why we write a provider for that. First of all, we make a filter provider. That's just a state provider. And the first value that this has is filter options.all, because by default filter is on all. Now I go to the category selector. That's this widget. I change this in a consumer widget. Oh. And instead of defining it just statically, I watch that provider. So you get the state of this provider, and if this filter ever changes, your widget rebuilds. That's what the watch is doing. You can also do read, and then it's just a one-time read. But if you watch, then your widget rebuilds your state. You can only use this watch synchronously, however. So while building this widget, you can use it, but not afterwards. So when I click on meetups, for example, the onSelected will call, and that's after the widget is already built. So you should not use the watch here. What you can do then is context.read. I can read the provider using the context. I can read, but also write to the state. So in this case, I just write value. I save and I pity. Oh. using hot reload and running tests at the same time is not the best idea, I guess. But now the filter is changing its state, so that those changes are visible at least, but it doesn't change the list yet. Look, if you click meetups, now it says meetups here, but it doesn't change anything in the list. So we make a different provider for that, and we call that filtered news provider, which is also a future provider. Now I have to define what it is going to give here. News, a list of news items. That's not needed when you define it like an arrow function, but if you want more code in there, then you need to also define what you're going to give back. Now I want to load all the news, so I listen to this provider. Then, like I said, the ref you can use to get the other providers. So in this case, I want to watch the all news provider. This future gives me a way to read that. And then I also want to read the filter. Need to make this async. That's the ref.watch filter provider state. And then I need to change that filter into a news category. So I define news category, and then I switch on that filter. Nice shortcut to just add everything. Let's just return news. All news here, and the ugly lines go away. When the filter option is on all, I do return news. All news. Otherwise, I set the category. In this way, you keep the properties of your view separated from the properties of your model. And here I do all news where element dot category is equal to the category I'm looking for, and then to list. Now I give a filtered list based on that category. Let's restart for the. It's still not working, of course, because I'm not using the filtered list news provider, but that's easy because I can just replace this. Go to news, I see no news. Go to meetups, I see 2 meetups, so the filter is working. And the nice thing about these 3 providers is that I still only have to override the all news provider, because that's used by the filter. And if this is the all news provider is giving me the test news, then also the filter will work on the test news. So let's try to run this test again. Now it's working. So today now I built first the test of how I expected it should work, and then I fixed my app that it also actually worked. And if someone for whatever reason now breaks my filter, then the test will fail, and the developer directly knows that he broke something without having to click through the whole app. So that's a big benefit for testing. I've already seen this. And I think that was it for my presentation. I guess some questions have arrived. Yes.
Yes, so indeed, in the chat, there was a question from Dennis Anderson, and the question was, so for the test to run, you need to create a Dart file in the test package and define the tests in the main function. Does it actually need to be named main?
Yes. Main is just the main part of a program. And I actually, don't really, it's just your Dart always executes the main. And for example, when you run an app, you also have a function main. So that's always the entry point of Dart when it runs a program. What's really important also when you run, you can run Flutter test to run all your tests. And it's really important to know that it's only running tests when the file is called something _ test.dart. So when you rename this to, for example, testing widgets, then your file is still looking perfectly fine, but if I run Flutter test, it will not find any test. And then it also says, hey, it needs to be like this. So it's important that it's in a function called main, but it's more important how your file is named, because you can easily miss some tests because the file is not named correctly.
Yep. And there were some other questions in the chat, but they were already answered by me or your colleague Maurits. I don't see any further questions coming in.
I have a question of Sander here.
Yeah, indeed. So Sander asked, is there anything against using just pump and settle by default? Is there a performance penalty?
It really depends on your app. For example, this case, it was just a pop-up that's closing. But when you have a loading indicator that's running and running, if you do pump and settle, then your test will try to get to the frame that the animation is not running anymore. So if you have some kind of animation that's always running, your test will fail, because in the end it will time out. So it will not hang forever, but the test will fail because the animation never stops.
Yeah.
So that's an important reason not to use it always, and only when you really need it.
Yeah, so indeed, pump should work normally, but if you have an animation which you know is ending, then pump and settle might work. And if you have a running animation, then you could also use pump with a timeout, let's say.
Now, what you can also do, if you know, for example, there is an image that's loading, and then it always fades in like 2 seconds. And you can just use pump, but with a duration of, for example, 2 seconds. If you know the animation is always taking 2 seconds, then you can do it like this. Then all the timers are just skipping for 2 seconds, and then it renders the frame again. So it doesn't render the frames during those 2 seconds. It just skips all the timers and then renders one frame again. So this is, if you know how long the animation will be, this is more efficient.
Indeed. I haven't seen any other questions unanswered in the chat. So then let's head over to the next topic. Thank you very much for your talk.
You're welcome.
About widget testing using Riverpod and the live demo, of course. So all tests were good in the end, so indeed, good job. Next up, we have Johan. And Johan works at Albert Heijn Technology, and he will tell you something about snapshot testing with Goldens.
Great, thank you. So Peter just told me I was still muted. yeah, I was doing the switching of the screens in the background when you saw my slide that was next up. So I'm behind the live stream buttons. So that was me switching stuff. Yes, hello, welcome to this part of the presentation. I hope you liked René's presentation and learned something new. I certainly did. So that's good to know. About me, I'm a freelance Flutter Android developer currently working at AHA Technology, Albert Heijn Technology, as tech lead Flutter. I started as a Java enterprise developer, did a little bit of iOS development in the early days, where projects were only done on iPads and iPhones at the time. But from 2011 onwards, I did full-time Android development. Founded the Dutch Android user group. Did that with a lot of pleasure. Gone freelance in 2015, I think, around that time. And in 2020, Albert Heijn contacted me. I already worked there for some time on the API app. If I was interested in a Flutter project. So yeah, I was very interested in that. I was so, how do you say it, thrilled by the experience, so enthusiastic that I again founded a meetup group. So Flutter Netherlands was born. And this is one of the results, this live stream, and really enjoy it, of course, giving you some content. And thank you, René, for pushing us again. Everybody is how do you say it, hit by these Corona times, right? So we practically are the meetup group with the worst start time. It was like April 2020. But hopefully we'll meet, somewhere in the fall or whatever. We'll see. But I'm really looking forward to just giving presentations or meeting you all in real life, right? Okay, so there was a bit of introduction. So I worked on the AHA Compact app. So it's a Flutter app. It's a compact, how you say it, solution. It's a smaller assortment of the Albert Heijn proposition. So you can order 25,000 products with the Albert Heijn app. With AHA Compact you can order about 5,000 of them, but it's free delivery. So that's like the perk you get when you order at AHA Compact. We're rolling out in various cities. We're in Haarlem, Heemstede, and Nijmegen, other cities. And hopefully we will roll out, to more cities and areas and provinces, and hopefully, of course, we will be global, yes, national at some point. Another Flutter app at Albert Heijn is Food First, a lifestyle coach. It was launched this week, so congratulations to the Food First team. Again, a Flutter app, so Albert Heijn is really looking or using Flutter for strategic apps, right? So, and that's my call to you. So if you're interested in working with Flutter at a company, how do you say it? Like Albert Heijn, a lot of stuff is happening currently at Albert Heijn, and we have a couple of vacancies really. So not one, not two, but I think 3. So if you'd like or are interested, give me a message or a call. You'll know where to find me. So what are we going to do today? I'd like to first start with a little theory. What are golden tests and whether they fit in the test pyramid, so to speak. Then, like René, I'm going to tempt the live coding gods and do some live coding. Not that fast maybe, but I'll use the keyword lively, hopefully. And then some wrap up and conclusions on the why or how golden tests can augment your test suite. So this testing pyramid, everybody knows it. So where does or where do golden tests fit in? Well, unfortunately, the animation of this golden test thingy got bumped, I guess. Anyway, on the bottom you have unit tests. Everybody knows them: small, easy, fast. A lot of them, right? And so that's the biggest chunk of this testing pyramid. Widget testing is somewhere in the middle. So where unit testing tests really one method of a component, a really small thing. A widget test really tests the widget, so it's more how you say it, combined. You may have some few logic in there, what to show, like Rene also showed with filter, selecting, seeing what's on screen. They're a bit more slower, maybe a bit more complex to write. And of course, on top you have UI integration tests. There was a package released in December, I think. So we used to do this with Flutter driver tests, but now we can do it with the integration test package. But integration tests are really slow, right? So that's really starting the app and you have instrumentation running to really mimic user clicks and test complete features and critical paths in your app. Yeah, I was kind of wondering, where do widget tests or golden tests fit in? Of course, all the components, business logic, services, repositories, mapping, they can all be unit tested. And widget again is this well, the view layer maybe. So the widgets, those fall into widget testing, and the integration testing is more, well, testing all these layers. And when you think about golden testing, you can also think about UI UX, right? So where widget test is what Rene showed, test behavior of your widget. Golden test typically tests how it looks. So where you saw Rene doing like tap this and then expect to see that, and then do this and then expect to see that. That's not how you use golden testing. What are golden tests really? Well, the term golden file is basically the file you generate of your widget, where you say, well, this widget now looks good. And with every next test run we're going to do, I want this widget to look completely or exactly or pixel by pixel look exactly as it is right now. So it's kind of a master file or a golden file. And who knows who this old lady is? It's from the Golden Girls. Oh, I liked it. Well, it's basically saying which one is the truth, right? So you have two images. One is your golden truth. So that's where the term golden file comes from. And if you think about declarative programming, or what we of course do with Flutter, you can say your UI is a function of your state, right? So you have your app state, or in this case, we have a news list of items, and a news item is a state of this news widget. This news widget has a build method, and the build method you can see as like a function which takes a state and uses that to produce a widget. And that's of course what you see in on screen. So if this is your custom widget, the UI can be your golden file, right? So you saw Rene creating an app and giving it a test provider, so he knows which data falls or runs in his tests. So basically, this widget test was like mocked at this level, right? So we have some test data, and then it's propagating all the way up to the widget, and that's, well, it's going through all this code, and then you can test your widget. With golden testing, and you can do the same with golden testing, but what I'd like to show you, and that's how we started using golden testing at Albert Heijn. If you see that your provider or whatever business logic can give you a certain state, and if you really take a widget as a function of a state, so the way we use it is simply stop the state at the widget, give it a state, and then render it on screen. So that's what I also want to show you today. Start live coding here. That's like a hint for me, right? So I'm gonna switch. Yes. Okay. Everybody can see it. I'm gonna take a sip of water. Okay. So we're seeing this this list of news items, and what I wanted to do is simply like Renee was doing, saying I'm going to create a news widget. I'm going to give it a test announcement message. So that's the thing I want to test. And then, like Renee, I'm going to pump it. Pump widget. News widget. And then we have a, let me see. Then we have a another matcher. So you saw that Renee used a find by one, or find one widget, or find none. For golden files, we have a matches golden filter. Matches golden file, and we can give it a file name. So we're just going to say basic golden test. We have to append the PNG, and this is a asynchronous. So it's returning an async matcher. So we cannot do expect. What we have to say, await expect later. Like Renee, we have to find the widget. I can do by type. I'm going to say just news widget. It's fine. And then I'm going to use this matcher. Let's see. I'm going to get rid of the emulator. Yeah, and then I can do two things. So like Renee was saying, I can do a Flutter test. I can run it on the command line. It's taking some time. And here you can see a couple of things. Let me see if I can find the real reason. Where's the real reason? I'm gonna run it here. Hopefully this gives me a quicker turn on what's going on. One test failed. It's saying no directionality widget found. So I cannot test this widget in one go. I simply have to wrap it with the scaffold is not necessary, but the material app is. So now if I run it, let's see what happens now. Okay, what it's now saying is could not be compared against non-existing file, blah blah blah. So that's right? So we just said it needs to match this file, but how do we generate this? Well, we can. There's another option you can give to your Flutter test command. It says Flutter test update goldens, and this basically looks at all these matched golden files. It runs the test. It renders the widget. It renders the UI, but then it doesn't match to the golden file you specified here. But then it generates this golden file. So that's just what we're going to do. Yeah, all tests passed, but basically we didn't test anything, but we generated the file. Okay, I can get away from here. So now when you see well, my changes with Git is that it created a new file, and yay, this is our first golden test, so to speak. I'm just going to test if the stream is still okay. I guess it is. Well, this is not very nice, right? So we have all these black boxes, and we've got this test message. It should say this is a test announcement, testing 1212. But well, I don't see it in this image, and it certainly doesn't look like what we see on the device. That has to do with the font you see here in this image. It's called the AHEM font. It's just black boxes, and that's what Flutter is using under the hood for these kind of tests. If you have a custom font, you can do all the custom loading of fonts yourself, but you can also, well, there is a package. It's called the Golden Toolkit. I'm gonna go to my next example. It's created by eBay, so they put a lot of, how do you say, they're also doing a lot of golden testing, and they put all their knowledge in this package. It's called Golden Toolkit, and that can do a couple of nice things for you. So this is what we were left with from the previous test. I'm not going to rewrite it to a Golden Toolkit test. So the first thing I'm going to change is this test widgets thing. We can say test golden, so that's simply an enhanced method from the Golden Toolkit package, which does a little bit extra under the hood. I'm going to leave it for you as an exercise to look at it. I still can create this. I still want to create this widget, right? So this is fine. But now what I can do is I have a golden builder and a column. And then I can say add scenario. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say basic, or I'd say test announcement. And then I'm going to give it my news widget. So this is fine. This ... simply says, well, take this result, right? It's a golden builder, and execute this method on this object, but give the builder back as a return value, right? So I can assign this to a local variable. So now I have this builder. Then the next thing, which is different from normal golden testing, is I don't call await pump widget, but they have added a extension method. It's called pump widget builder, which requires a builder or a widget, and this builder can generate a widget with the build method. And then there's also something interesting. It's called server size, and we've added a couple of phone sizes here. It's just something we created. You can give a size, but it's nice that you can give it to this builder. And then the other thing, which is different from what how do you say it? What normal testing is doing, is we don't need to do all this expect later and find by type and the matches golden file. We can simply say await screen matches golden. I need the tester, and I need the name. So basic golden toolkit test, fine. I don't need to append the PNG suffix. So again, I'm going to update the golden files, because how do you say it? I just wrote this test and the file is not there yet. The test is successful, but again, it didn't test anything, but it generated this file for me. And this is looking more like what we see in our app, right? So we have an icon, we have text. It's looking quite like what we see in the app. So this is awesome in my view. Another thing you can do and I kind of reveal it over here. You can add text scale tests. That's a tongue twister for everybody. Say that 10 times. Text scale test. Terrible. So besides this scenario, we have this text scale scenario, and there we can simply say text scale. It's going to append the text scale factor. This widget is, well, the same one, and then I can give a text scale factor of 1.6, for instance, and one more for 2.0. And then when I run this update Goldens again, so this golden builder is simply like a wrapper, generates a different, how you say it, another widget, right? It wraps all these scenarios in one single widget, and then it generates this file for me. And this is very interesting, I think. So here you can see how your widget is behaving in these scenarios. So one of the goals we have at Albert Heijn is to make our apps, our Flutter apps, or at least the AHA Compact app, where the team that I'm working in, is to make it readable, how do you say it, not overflowing or whatever, for up to 2 times the text scale. So this is really awesome to see that you can create like a single screenshot, a single golden file for all these text scale scenarios. The last thing I'm gonna show you is, of course, well, we started with an announcement. The same thing you can do for this test announcement, right? You can do something similar for news, and we have a meetup where you have like a test news message and a test meetup message, and again I can run this test or the update Goldens. So here I did something similar with the test, what I did with the text scales, but now I used some variants, and I simply gave these test states to my widget, and then this file is created. So this is the announcement, this is news, and this is meetup, and immediately you see that this can function as good documentation, right? So at Albert Heijn we have these product cards in these lists, and they can contain various states. They can be out of stock, or they can be bonus, or they can be I don't know. There we have many states. So we have created golden tests for all these states. And if you can imagine, if you want to mock that via a test API or whatever, or and you have to really get through your whole stack, all your layers, it can be difficult to pinpoint. You know, if I do this here, then in the widget it will result in this state. And this is well, really effective way to test all your states, because sometimes it's really hard to how do you say it, reproduce these states in real life for your testers. That's it basically. I'm going back to the presentation to see if there are any. Oh, that's me. Where's my presentation? Yes, I'm gonna see if there are any questions. Yeah, All right. Yes, you can say. I think it's possible. You can simply say dash dash name or something, and then only run the update goldens for the test file. Somebody, please correct me if I'm talking nonsense here. Yeah. So, oh, yeah. Well, currently we only have Dutch localization, so we don't support English yet, so we don't have that problem. I think the Golden Toolkit is capable of that, but please look up the um, the how do you say it, the theory for that. We'll probably add some links there. Yeah, yeah, they can definitely be combined. So the Flutter driver or the integration test really do what Renee showed, but then on a different level. So widget testing is basically, I don't know, it's a test framework, right? So we simply render your widget, and you can do some finding and clicking and checking, but the UI or the integration test really boots your app, and it how to say it, it also loads an instrumentation, and that really clicks through your live app. Also, you can mock data there, of course, but it's a different way of testing, really. Yeah, but it's a good question because you can also with unit testing, you will really have to, and this widget testing and now golden testing. So you really have to, I don't know. Also, you can, I say, use golden testing just to click on something and then render the screen, save it, or how to say it, make it a golden file, and then that also says, find a widget which says news or whatever. So that's also a way to do it. But we chose for now to do it like this, and but it's a good question. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think I saw the tweet where people asked which IDE you're using. So I think still 2/3 is on Visual Studio Code and 1/3 on Android Studio or so. But yeah, I have nearly 10 years of not Android Studio, but at least I don't know when it came out, 2015, I guess. So it's easier for me, Android Studio. Yeah, good one. I should have shown that. I'll do that. Uh, so let me again switch. So of course, if you how do you say it? If I have created this test, and for instance I change this test announcement, I remove some words, this blah blah, and I make this false, and now I run my tests. So that, oh really? So now you can see, because well, this thing is, I use this in all these tests. But here you can see you'll get a failures map, and here you have like this is the test image, so how it rendered. but this is the master image, you know. So this is your test, and this is what it is expected to be, and then you get this like this mask and a difference. How do you say it? File. So it's really pixel. How do you say it? Pixel by pixel checking of what's different. So yeah. So that's definitely one of the how do you say it? The big pluses of using golden testing, because the eye can only see so much, right? So if your designer says it should be 8 pixels padding, and then you see it, or you know it from code, of course, 8 pixels. But if something is 1 pixel off, this golden test will capture that. Oh, yes, yes, definitely. Sorry about that. So that's pretty terrible. So Peter was not audible. I should have switched.
Am I audible now? Okay, cool. No problemo. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in. Thanks for the people who spoke up that I was not audible for asking the questions. I did was asking the questions to Johan at least, but you guys didn't hear that, only Johan.
Yeah, yeah. Peter, I've one more or two more things I forgot, and I think it's good to mention. So I still have some caveats. So we saw that the golden files that were generated on our MacBooks didn't match when we ran it in CI on an Ubuntu runner. So that was well, funny to see. So now we also have to run these golden tests on a macOS runner. So that's something, I don't know, you might also experience. So that's weird, right? So Linux is rendering something different than Mac OS. Of course, you can how do you say it? Maybe it's obvious to some, but it's well, but not how do you say it? I didn't like it, or I didn't expect it. Let's put it like that. And you can only use one font family, or one font per family. So currently in Golden Test, so you can test for bold text, but it's not with font weights, and that you can use different font in text. And also, when you want to load images from the network, it's also not possible currently in Golden Test. So you have to work around this yourself, maybe with a custom image cache or something. So those are the downsides of Golden testing. Then to wrap up, how they say it, if you can extract custom widgets, I would really advise it. So if you have like you build your UI and you have this long, long list of widgets, all how do you say it, glued together in a hierarchy, and you can really extract those and render that with state. You can also extract that state. That's really good for making them candidates to make them golden testable. So we found that it's very easy to test all state variants and also use different text scale factors. So that's really a plus for us. You can also use gold files as documentation. So one of our, how do you say it, one of our features we had to build, we generated a lot of golden files for that, basically showing all the variants of a product card or whatever. And that really, how do you say it, the tester looked at it, and that really gave, well, more confidence that it looked like it should. And also with the last question from the audience, you can really catch the smallest UI changes, which are impossible to see. And in our view, that's augmenting your test suite, right? So otherwise, if you just say find one widget with a certain text, you're not matching color. So yeah, that was it for my part. So back to Peter again, and this time you will hear him loud and clear.
Yes, sorry for stepping in a bit early. So yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. Even I learned something about snapshot testing with Goldens. I did try it out with the normal stuff, but I didn't know about the eBay plugin, so I will probably have a look into that when I have time. Awesome. And then also good to mention that the source code is available on our GitHub page. So if you head over to flutternl.org and click on the GitHub icon, you can find our repository, which is called Flutter NL testing, and there will be the code of both René and Johan, which they demoed today. Then, before we close off, the next meetup we will have is in March. We will have a Google Meet, like mentioned, where we will have some discussions about what Flutter or Google announced the day before in their Flutter event. We will also hopefully have a special guest, still awaiting that, and we will end that party next month with a giveaway. But also today we will have an after party on Google Meet itself. The link will be in the comments on YouTube. So head over to there if you want to have a chat with us, or maybe ask some questions, or just have some fun. We will be hanging around for a bit over there. But that was the live stream for today. So I would say thank you all for joining. Also our test dummies, thanks for joining. Also Johan for the talk, and also René for the talk. And we will head over to Google Meet to start the after party there. We will see you next month, hopefully at our next meetup. Cheers!